President Trump and First Lady Melania received the royal treatment today on their first full day of their historic second state visit to the UK. Upon arriving at the Windsor Castle today, the President and First Lady were greeted by what UK officials say was the largest military ceremonial welcome for a state visit to Britain in living memory. Well, how significant might this visit be for the U.S. and the U.K.? Well, joining me now live from London to discuss this is Peter McIlvenna. He is the co-founder of the Hearts of Oak, a freedom of speech alliance, and he works in the office of the U.K.'s House of Lords. Peter, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks so much for joining us.
Always good to be with you, Tony. Thanks so much.
So President Trump's visit is historic in that he is the first second-term U.S. leader invited for a second official state visit. How did this visit come about?
Well, state visits are an invite from the monarch, and I believe George W. Bush had an invite in 2003, and Barack Obama had an invite in 2011, and then President Trump has had two invites, and that's fairly unique in the UK. He visited here in 2019 at the invitation of Queen Elizabeth II. Of course, he has come this time at the invitation of King Charles, and I've watched the footage all day. It's a short state visit of 2 days, but today has all been about the pomp, the ceremony, the things that Britain does well. Some of the few things that we still are able to do, pomp and ceremony. And he visited Windsor Castle, which is the home of King Charles. He went to see where Queen Elizabeth II is buried. And today has been about a time of seeing the military, seeing the fly past of the Red Arrows, and spending time with King Charles, Queen Camilla, and the royal family. So it's certainly, to us in the UK, it's been wall-to-wall coverage from morning to night. Whether you watch GB News, Sky News, even BBC have wanted to cover it. I would love to ask you, Tony, in an interview if it was such a high event in the US, but that's maybe for another time. But for us, it has been a high-profile event, the event of the last few days.
Well, I did see a little bit of it, and you talked about the military, having been in the Marine Corps and actually done a number of color guards work. I'm always fascinated by the big hats that the British soldiers wear. I don't know how they can even walk around with those big things. But that's we'll save that for another day as well. So what's the message that this is sending?
There are all different messages. Today was about soft diplomacy. Today was about connecting with the royal family. I know President Trump has huge, high regard for the royal family. He really adores and possibly goes back to his mother being born out in the Scottish Highlands, and there is that deep connection, and we haven't seen that for many presidents. Many presidents claim Irish ascendancy. Actually, President Trump has that connection with Scotland and therefore the UK, and therefore is maybe the closest US president to the UK in many, many years. And the key thing today, there were many conversations, private and public conversations. It then moves over to the engagement with the UK government. And of course, it's a short visit. I don't know whether the visit was actually shortened because of obviously Charlie Kirk's funeral on Friday, and President Trump is flying back for that. But today was about the soft diplomacy. Tomorrow is about the engagement with Keir Starmer. And Keir Starmer is worse than Obama, worse than Joe Biden was for you in terms of censorship, in terms of curtailment of free speech, in terms of the demographic change we have seen in the UK, open borders, mass immigration, all of that. And although President Trump connects closely with the royal family, when you look at the governmental side, he has a huge concern, and J.D. Vance has expressed this very well in terms of the free speech aspect, and President Trump holds that in high regard, as you should in the US, as we have tried to hold it in high regard in the UK. So it'll be interesting to see how those develop.
Well, let me ask you, Peter, are you hopeful that the president will bring that up in his meeting with government officials tomorrow?
I think he will, and I would encourage the Washington Watch viewers, please to pray for that, because freedom of speech is key, and we've seen that eroded massively. And the Trump administration seems to be really concerned about this and seems to have connected this to trade deals. And I hope that remains tomorrow, and I hope Keir Starmer does not bamboozle. You cannot bamboozle President Trump. I mean, he knows what he has come in for. He will walk away with the deal he wants more than any other leader in the world. So I think I have high hopes that President Trump will come into this, and he is looking for a good trade deal economically for the US and for the UK. But he is also very concerned at the erosion of free speech. And I'm sure he's had many conversations with Nigel Farage about that, and be prepped for those conversations.
So there's trade, there's Russia. There's also, coming up at the end of this month here in New York, there is the United Nations meeting, and you know, the UK saying that they may join Spain, France, and others calling for a Palestinian state.
That is an ongoing concern in the UK, and many of the Labour Party, the left party, the governmental party, are very pro-Palestine. They hate Israel in every aspect, and part of that comes from our godless aspect to our political scene in the UK, and therefore they do not understand the history, and they do not understand the geopolitics. So I've also got a huge concern. I saw expressions from Labour politicians today that they were wanting to force the UK government to back a two-state solution, and President Trump is against that, and rightly so. So it'd be interesting how those conversations happen. Of course, they don't just happen between President and Prime Minister. It's with the whole entourage in that.
Peter, thanks for staying up late and joining us there from London and giving us the latest on President Trump's visit to your country.
Thank you, Tony.